Welcome back to WonderDepth. Today's episode is different from everything we have made before. Today we are not counting facts. We are not going through a list. Today we are going on a journey into the most complex object in the known universe. An object you carry with you everywhere you go, that shapes every decision you make, every relationship you have, every goal you pursue or quietly abandon, your brain. And specifically, the uncomfortable truth that your brain is working against you. Not because something is wrong with you, not because you lack discipline or drive or intelligence, but because your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. And what it was built to do was designed for a world that no longer exists. By the end of this episode, you will understand why. And more importantly, you will know what to do about it. This is WonderDepth. Let's go deeper. Here is the most important thing neuroscience has discovered in the last 20 years. Approximately 95% of everything you do, think, and feel every single day is not driven by your conscious mind. It is driven by your subconscious. You believe you are making choices. You believe you are steering your life. In reality, your brain is running programs it wrote years, sometimes decades ago, and your conscious mind is largely along for the ride, constructing explanations after the fact for decisions that weren't already made. The person steering your life is mostly a version of you from the past. Let that sit for a moment. So what is your brain actually trying to do? It has one priority above all others. Not your happiness, not your success, not your growth or your fulfillment or your potential. Survival. And to your brain, survival means one thing above everything else: predictability. The familiar, however painful, however limiting, however far from the life you want, always feels safer than the unknown, however wonderful that unknown might be. This is not a metaphor. This is how your neural architecture is built. When you move towards something uncertain, a big goal, a new relationship, a change in career, a version of yourself you have never been before, a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain called the amygdala sounds an alarm. Not because you are in danger, simply because you are moving into unfamiliar territory. And to the amygdala, unfamiliar and dangerous are the same thing. In that moment, the most sophisticated part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for long-term thinking, planning, and self-control, goes partially offline. You are no longer thinking about where you want to be in 5 years. You are thinking about how to feel safe right now. And so you procrastinate. You overthink. You find reasons why this is not the right time. You self-sabotage, not because you are weak, because your brain is working perfectly. Researchers now describe self-sabotage not as a character flaw but as an evolutionary survival mechanism. The same system that kept your ancestors alive in a genuinely dangerous world, where the unfamiliar really could kill you. The problem is that those systems have not been updated. Your brain still treats a difficult email the same way your ancestors treated a predator. It still treats the possibility of rejection the same way it treats a physical threat. It still treats the uncertainty of pursuing something you care about as a danger to be avoided rather than an opportunity to be taken. And here's what makes this so insidious. The brain does not just avoid the unfamiliar, it actively recreates the familiar. This is why people who escape difficult situations so often recreate them. Why people who lose weight so often regain it. Why the same patterns show up in relationship after relationship, job after job, year after year. The subconscious has a set point, a deeply encoded picture of who you are and what your life looks like. And until that picture changes, everything else tends to return to match it. But here is what changes everything. Understanding this is itself the intervention. The moment you stop judging yourself for self-sabotaging and start getting curious, asking what threat your brain thinks it is protecting you from, the pattern begins to loosen. Research from National Geographic's 2026 study on self-sabotage confirms that understanding why it happens is the first step toward interrupting it, not by forcing change, by understanding what is driving the behavior in the first place. You cannot fight your way out of this, but you can understand your way out of it. So what does that look like in practice? When you notice yourself avoiding something important, name what is happening. Out loud if you can. Say, my amygdala is firing. This is a false alarm. Neuroscience calls this affect labeling, and research consistently shows that naming an emotional or threat state immediately reduces its intensity. You are not talking yourself out of your feelings. You are giving your prefrontal cortex enough oxygen to come back online. Now, let's talk about habits. Because this is where most people get stuck. The brain is a pattern detection machine. It clings to what it knows, even when what it knows is self-defeating. When you repeat a behavior, hesitating before speaking up, checking your phone the moment you sit down to work, quitting just before the finish line, that behavior gets encoded in a part of the brain called the basal ganglia and becomes automatic, a program that runs without your conscious input. This is why willpower alone almost never works. Willpower is the prefrontal cortex trying to override the basal ganglia, and the basal ganglia almost always wins. It is faster, older, and more deeply wired. You are trying to drive the wrong way on a motorway that the brain has spent years building. The solution is not more willpower, it is better design. Research is unambiguous on this. Behavior changes fastest when it requires the least decision-making. Every choice you have to make is an opportunity for your ancient brain to choose comfort instead. So remove the choice. Design your environment so the right behavior is the only easy behavior. Want to exercise in the morning? Sleep in your gym clothes. Want to read more? Put your phone in another room and leave a book on your pillow. Want to write? Open the document before you go to bed so it is the first thing on your screen in the morning. As neuroscientist Sherry Koshi puts it, repetition, not intention, rewires behavior. Resolutions fail because they rely on willpower, and willpower is unreliable. What works is design. Stop trying to be more disciplined. Start making the good choice the only easy choice. If you are finding this useful, please subscribe to WonderDepth. We make episodes like this every week, and your support is genuinely what makes it possible. There is another thing your brain is doing that you need to know about. It has a negativity bias, a profound, structural, built-in tendency to weight negative experiences far more heavily than positive ones. This is not a personality trait, it is a survival feature. For hundreds of thousands of years, the humans who noticed danger faster than they noticed opportunity were the ones who lived long enough to have children. That instinct is still running inside you, scanning every interaction for signs of rejection, every situation for evidence of failure, every ambition for reasons it probably will not work. Neuroscientists have measured this. A negative experience is processed with roughly 5 times the intensity of an equivalent positive one. One harsh criticism can undo the effect of 5 compliments. One failure feels 5 times heavier than one success feels light. Your emotional accounting system is rigged, and the first step to changing that is simply knowing it is rigged. Here is what the research recommends. At the end of each day, not in the morning, at the end, write down 3 specific things that went well, and why they went well. This is not positive thinking. This is not self-help fluff. Psychologist Martin Seligman ran controlled trials on this practice and found that done consistently for 3 weeks, it produces measurable and lasting reductions in depression and anxiety. You are retraining the brain's attentional bias, teaching it to scan for evidence of progress rather than proof of danger. 3 things. Every evening. It takes 4 minutes. The neuroscience behind it is extraordinary. And then there's sleep. We tend to think of sleep as rest, as the absence of activity, as something we earn when everything else is done. Your brain disagrees entirely. During sleep, the brain activates a waste clearance system called the glymphatic system, which flushes out toxic proteins, including the amyloid plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. This process cannot happen properly when you are awake. Sleep is not rest for the brain. It is the most critical maintenance work your brain does, and if you consistently cut it short, the waste accumulates. A single night of poor sleep reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex by up to 30% the following day. Your capacity for self-control, rational decision-making, and emotional regulation drops by nearly a third. From one bad night, every decision you make when underslept is a decision made by a compromised brain, and most people are making those decisions every single day. Treat sleep as your highest performance tool. Lower your room temperature, eliminate all light, keep a consistent sleep and wake time, even on weekends. Your brain runs on a 24-hour biological clock that cannot be bargained with or caught up on. Consistency is everything. Here is something that often surprises people. The brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one, not at the level of neural firing patterns. This is established neuroscience. Olympic athletes who visualize their performance activate the same motor neurons as those who physically practice. Mental rehearsal produces measurable physical change in the brain. The imagination is not separate from reality as far as your neurons are concerned. It is a form of experience. What this means is that you imagine yourself to be, consistently, vividly, repeatedly, is who your brain begins to treat as familiar. And we have already established what the brain moves toward, the familiar. Spend 5 minutes each morning not visualizing the outcome you want, but the version of yourself who already lives that life. How do they think? How do they make decisions under pressure? How do they respond when things go wrong? You are not daydreaming. You are writing new neural code. You are making a future version of yourself feel familiar enough that your brain stops treating it as a threat and starts moving toward it. And finally, perhaps the most important thing of all, your brain is neuroplastic. Throughout your entire life, for most of the 20th century, neuroscientists believe the adult brain was fixed, that you were born with a certain architecture and that was that. We now know this is completely wrong. The brain forms new neural connections, generates new neurons, and fundamentally reorganizes itself at any age, in response to any new experience, any new habit, any new way of thinking. You are never too old to change. Your brain never stops being capable of transformation. The patterns that are running your life right now, the self-doubt, the procrastination, the familiar retreats to comfort, they are not permanent. They are not who you are. They are programs, written in neural pathways. And neural pathways can be rewritten, not quickly, not without effort, but with understanding, with consistency, and with the right design. They can be rewritten. Your brain is not your enemy. It is an extraordinary, ancient, adaptive machine, doing its absolute best with programming that was written for a world that no longer exists. Your job is not to defeat it. Your job is to understand it, to update it, and to gently, persistently, point it toward the life you actually want to live. That is today's episode of WonderDepth. We hope it gave you something real, not just something fascinating to know, but something you can actually use, starting today. If it did, please like this video. It takes 1 second, and it directly helps this channel reach more people who want to think more deeply about themselves and the world. Subscribe if you are not already here. Every week we go deeper into science, nature, history, the human mind, and we always bring you something worth your time. And leave us a comment. We want to know, which part of this hit closest to home? Which idea are you going to try first? We read every single comment, and your responses genuinely shape what we make next. Thank you for watching WonderDepth. We will see you in the next one.